Hi everyone. Sunday a few weeks ago was when I was supposed to upload a video. However, I spent that day with a friend and I also got the tip to write scripts so I can make more informative videos. So that's what I've been doing these past few weeks. Thank you so much for your patience. Anyway, Korean ethnic nationalism. You could have heard K-pop singer Chon So-mi talk about how she was bullied in school because she's mixed. Or maybe you've heard about little Sai Hoang Min-woo, who was the target of online attacks because his mother is Vietnamese. And perhaps you've also heard of Han Hyun-min, the half-black model, presenter and actor who stars in the sitcom So Not Worth It on Netflix. All of these people are challenging what it means to be Korean in a country that still has a reputation for being ethnically homogeneous and still derives much of its national identity from that. Both North and South Korea still have a bit of a culture of if both of your parents are not Korean, then you yourself are not Korean either. This is effectively what Korean ethnic nationalism is. Let's take a look at the history of how this ethnic nationalism emerged and developed. I feel slightly more comfortable in front of a camera now, so I hope this will be the start of a series of videos that will be a bit longer than 3 minutes tops and more informative than what I've said so far. What you might also like to know is that I will, in this and in subsequent videos, I will say the names of Korean, Chinese, and Japanese persons in their traditional order. So last name first. Korean ethnic nationalism emerged during the era of Japanese colonization. Choson, as the kingdom on the Korean peninsula was called then, had long been a tributary or client state to China, meaning it was dependent on China for much of its economy and politics. After the end of the First Sino-Japanese War, Japan and China signed the Treaty of Shimonoseki in 1895. One of the points in the treaty was that Choson be granted full independence from China, which would open the way for Japanese influence. This encroaching influence by a, or perhaps another, larger power was felt by the king of Choson at that time, King Kojong, who proclaimed the Empire of Korea, or Daehan Jaeguk, in 1897 as a means to counteract this Japanese influence. Side note, there had been an attempt from Japan to invade Korea in the 16th century by Toyotomi Hideyoshi. That invasion was repelled by Admiral Yi Sun-shin, who remains a folk hero until today. Anyway, during this period, that lasted until the annexation of the peninsula in 1910, now Emperor Kojong oversaw partial modernizations and westernizations of Korea's military, economy, and educational system, among other things, in what became known as the Kwangmu reforms. I myself suspect this may have partially been in response to the rapid industrialization of Japan after that country had been isolated for a little over 2 centuries. Apologies, I will be going off on a bit of a tangent here, but I believe this is important to know. It might also be interesting to note that Japan was one of the few Asian countries that was not colonized by Western powers. It saw what happened to other countries in Asia that opened their doors to, among others, France. They were colonized. In response to what Japan saw happen to other Asian nations, it self-imposed its isolation, with limited trade with China, Korea, and, as the only Western power, the Netherlands. I believe Japan derives a kind of exceptionalism from this, a sense of being special, as well as from the aforementioned rapid industrialization. Anyway, in 1910, Japan annexed the Korean Empire, after having made Korea its protectorate in 1995. I admit I don't know much about the history of Japan in this era, and I don't want to rip info from Wikipedia that you can probably look up yourself. so I personally won't be going into the specifics of that for the time being. However, I do intend to read up on it, so if you know of any books on Japanese history that you'd recommend, do hit me up. I'd love to do another video on the history of Japan in the 19th century and how it relates to the Korean Peninsula. I think I will leave it here for today. If you have questions, feel free to ask me through Twitter. I'll see you in the next video.